Ketan got engaged and he was almost going to get married, and Twisha was already married for 6 months. The first thought that comes to my mind is, why did their astrologers, while matching horoscopes, did not see red flags? Would you be able to elaborate on partners that can inflict death-like situations?
Now, next 30 seconds, you need to listen very carefully. Mars and Ketu has ability to murder someone.
The spouse turns out to be violent or abusive, and I believe definitely these combinations can be seen in one's horoscope.
Worst combination is right ahead. You have strong chances of losing your life, at least your mental peace.
So in the case of Twisha, what happened was that her in-laws are also now under investigation, and of course they are behind bars because of the fact that they were involved in taking away her life. How do you see especially your spouse's parents and their behavior towards you? I have come across people who proposed to me for marriage, but when I have checked their horoscopes, they have had combinations of casually sleeping around with people, also big red flag. They were into women who can sell themselves to multiple men. How would you see traits of a narcissist from an individual horoscope? Have you also seen somebody marrying a spouse and then their downfall has begun because of the planets of the spouse? Have you seen combinations like that? How do you as an astrologer see these red flag combinations in a horoscope? Namaste, hi, this is Preetika Rao. Welcome to the channel that trended astrology podcasts on YouTube for a global audience. Today I have with me astrologer Navneet Chitkara ji, and today we're going to discuss red flags in a horoscope that you must look into before you get into a marriage commitment. Namaste, Navneet ji, welcome, Hare Krishna.
Namaste, Preetika ji. Thank you for having me on your channel.
The pleasure is all mine. So, recently we have seen these two cases, of Twisha and Ketan making headlines. And it's a very serious issue. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that, they had almost, Ketan had almost got engaged and he was almost going to get married. And Twisha was already married for 6 months or so. The first thought that comes to my mind is, why did their astrologers, while matching horoscopes, did not see red flags? Because that's the first thing an astrologer is supposed to see, right? When you're matching horoscopes for a partner, especially in India. So for the audience, a little bit of, history here. Our Indian Vedic civilization had our ancestors, the Sapta Rishis, who were all astrologers, and it is in our DNA, it's in our tradition to match horoscopes and to see if the marriage is going to work or not by looking into a horoscope. So that's why this astrological perspective today. So Navneet ji, let me ask you straight away the first question. When people come to you for marriage, marriage consultation, what is the first thing that you see in a horoscope that you can probably alert the other person of?
So, Preetika ji, as the Kali Yuga is progressing and Kali Yuga is reaching to the more darker side, I think it is the strongest requirement to revamp the meaning of marriage. Whenever we look for a match for our son or our daughter or our brother or a sister, the first thing that comes to our mind is, what is in it for us, or what is in it for me in this marriage? That was exactly the opposite of what our Rishi Munis and Sapat Rishis have taught us or have instructed us. For an example, in nowadays, and why astrologers are failing, why parents are failing, why marriages are failing, why relationships are failing, is because we are only considering association, we are considering the financial status, we are considering the looks, we are looking at the micro level families or joint families and all these things. Example, for an example, if I go and look at maybe a potential spouse for my sister, the first thing would be ladka kya karta hai, right? Now, well, this is not bad way of looking at marriage. This is not wrong way of approaching the marriage. But before even we say that, our rishis have said one thing, that what are you going to give in a marriage? Every father and every mother should ask these, at least 5, 10 things that, hey, once you're getting married, forget about what you are getting from this marriage. What are you going to give to your spouse? What kind of emotional support, mental support, psychological support, financial support, right? See, marriage is not about seventh house. Marriage is not about, you know, we have a 17 crore budget for the celebration of the marriage. Marriage is all about understanding and marrying all the 12 houses of the horoscope and all the divisional charts of your spouse. It's a partnership where you will be with him in his first house, in his second house, in his fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, all the houses. That means you are partner with him in his intelligence, with his family, with his prakram, with his home, family life, comforts of life, and even the sixth house of debts and diseases and problems. And you are marrying his seventh house as well, his eighth house. You're marrying his ninth house. You're taking his dharma. You're marrying his 10th house. You're marrying his social circle. And if you cannot give the characteristics of all the 12 houses to your life partner, it's the biggest red alert. You are not mentally prepared for the marriage. And where astrologers are going is they're looking at the gunas, how good, how compatible you are with each other. We're taking a Tara Matri, Guna Matri, and not going beyond, looking at the individual horoscopes of the native, how much mentally he has been groomed and how much he or she is ready for the marriage. So technically, marriage is a social contract in Kali Yuga, but marriage was all about giving and marrying the all the 12 houses of the horoscope of your life partner. That is what marriage is. That is where we are lacking. And this is the time to revamp everything. You started with a statement of red flag. When we talk about red flag, when we talk about these tragic cases of Siya and Ketan, I mean, it is not just one planet who will define this. It is about having combinations in the chart and looking a chart in totality. But still, as an input, if you want, I can definitely tell you about certain combinations that are very, very threatening, and it can lead to this kind of extremist, actions intentionally or non-intentionally.
Right. So, would you be able to elaborate on partners that can inflict death like situations in your life?
Certainly. One, Ketu is extreme. I'm not using any other planet with with a lot of being extremist. Second is the planet Mars. You see, Mars is a planet that does not wants to get married. Out of all the planets, if the planet which is against marriage is Mars, right? Now, when you have these two planets together, which is Mars and Ketu. Ketu not favoring marriage but favoring children, progeny. And Mars doesn't want to get married. And now Mars is like aggression, Mars is like a soldier, Mars is like someone who's in defense, ready to fight and can take the extreme action. So whenever you have Mars and Ketu, now this you have to check in the D1, which is your Lagna Kundli, and the D9 chart. Now next 30 seconds, you need to listen very carefully. Mars and Ketu in the 8th house or in the 12th house of a particular native has ability to murder someone whom he or she doesn't like. Now, this is not the statement. This is one of a strong input where other planets, the Lagna, the Nakshatra, the Janma Nakshatra, the kind of turbulence you have in your mind, how weak or strong is your moon, are your planets on Dagda Rashis? So there's so many points. But this is a very important input that if you have Mars and Ketu in the 8th or the 12th house, you have ability to murder. And if you have Mars in the 2nd or the 6th house of your Lagna Kundli or your D9 chart, you can get murdered. So I give you a very small example. I have my, gym trainer, and he has this combination of Mars Ketu in the 2nd house. And he was fighting a divorce case. And I just said, hey, you need to run away from this. I mean, don't fight, right? Just try to settle it. Whatever she's saying, go ahead, give it. And he said, no, everything is going fine. I can take care of the situation. The families are there, and said, no. After few months, he realized that these people had even plans to remove this person, right? And then, somehow that thing came in his mind. He just ran away. He was away from every, concept. And the lawyer was there in the front. And eventually that divorce happened on 90% terms of that girl, right? And then he came back and thanked me that, sir, you saved my life, right? So Mars Ketu in the 2nd and the 6th is you have a chance that you can be murdered. But if it is in the 8th and the 12th, you have the ability. Same applies to a Jupiter Rahu combination in the Navamsha as well. Specifically, if you have that Jupiter Rahu combination in the 12th house or in the 8th house or in the 2nd or in the 6th house, these are also the big red alerts. Now, there are certain combinations. For an example, uh, having Sun in the Lagna, Surya Bhagwan in the Lagna of the D9 chart, you are going to live more than your spouse. That is also another combination, a sutra given in the Gemini. Now, but on the same time, it is not the principle, it is one of the input. However, we need to check the chart in totality. But again, I mean, if you have Sun in the Lagna, and if we have already married someone, right, with Mars and Ketu in the 8th or 12th, or you having your Mars and Ketu in the 2nd or the 6th, but if your Lagna is strong, if your longevity is good, and you have Sun in the Lagna of D9, you are at lesser risk. But these are some of the combinations that are dangerous. Not only these, there are combinations of being widow or widowhood. So Atma Karaka planet with the 8th lord and the 7th lord, these combinations, right? Or you have your 7th lord in the Mula Nakshatra, or you have your 8th lord going into the 12th house in the D9. All these combinations, if you are an astrologer, if you can look for 10, 20, 50, 30 charts, you will find these combinations in extreme disturbed marriages. And last but not least, we always look at the position of the Dharakara Graha in the Upapada Lagna. Upapada Lagna should be aspected by benefics. 2nd house of Upapada is very, very important. Exalted planet in the Upapada Lagna is not good, right? And having Dharakarak, combust, retrograde, and in the 6th, 8th, 12th house of your Upapada is a red alert. So, technically, Mars, Ketu combination, right? This, has ability to take somebody's life. So these are the yogas, right, that, you should consider and be very, very careful, right, when you're getting married. And these things cannot be seen, in the charts of two people getting married as, doing the Tarametri or the Gudametri. These combinations are in the individual horoscopes. So this is where the disconnect is. Look at, I read somewhere, Pritika ji, that one newspaper was saying that the parents of the deceased, they have gone through pundits, they have gone through and they have matched the horoscope very well. But how many of them actually thought of analyzing the chart of a girl or a boy and, their mentality, their grooming, their nakshatras? Are they born in certain very, very turbulent nakshatras like Ardra? Do they have Amavasya yoga? Do they have Amavasya, yogas? And then, these planets are present on the Dagd Rashis. These combinations are technically red alerts in the chart of an individual, which can lead to taking somebody's life.
Very insightful. So basically, Navneet ji, I have noticed that there are two types of people. One set are not serious about marriage. They just want to have flings and just sleep around, especially in the name of dating. And then the breakup becomes a very easy way out for them. So all they want to do is just have affairs in the name of dating, and then just leave the partner in the name of breakup, and they have fun doing that. Whereas you have people on the other side who are very seriously looking out for marriage, and I would personally, of course, advise people to, who are serious about marriage, to go in for the second lot. But sometimes it's very difficult to decipher who is serious and who is not, because the ones who are not serious about marriage could pretend that they are extremely serious about you and they are gung-ho about you and you are the one for them. But when it comes to marriage, that commitment, that final commitment, they may just run away, or their horoscopes may show like major red flags. Like I have come across people who have who have proposed to me for marriage, but when I have seen their horoscopes and checked their horoscopes through great astrologers, they have had combinations of casually sleeping around with people. Also, big red flag, they were into women who can sell themselves to multiple men and be with everyone. So I have seen multiple people who have approached me for marriage, who have pretended to be spiritual and all of that, but when you see their horoscope, it's like looking into the mirror. It's like giving out their dark sides. And I would say there was a phase when there were horoscopes which were coming to me for, as marriage proposals. People were upfront approaching me for marriage, and I was seeing these clear red flags. They were all into, casually sleeping around and with women who, would sell themselves to multiple people. So, how do you, as an astrologer, see these combinations, these red flag combinations in a horoscope?
Right. Beautiful question. First of all, all these attitudes and the, red flags that you're talking about, they are not gender specific. They are horoscope specific. So I've seen, the similar kind of, red flags irrespective of the gender. Now, you see, there are three very, very important aspects to it. The first thing is the affliction of moon. As I said, moon is a very lustful planet. And moon having certain degree of affliction, especially moon with Rahu, or at times moon with Ketu, give you that extremism. But on top of it, we can never ignore a planet, Venus. Venus is a planet which is a planet of devotion beyond romance and sexuality. Problem comes when Venus is afflicted. Now, in Kali Yuga, 99.9% people will have minor afflictions with Venus and Jupiter because we've taken our rebirth because of our relationships in the past. Now, if you have Venus, which is afflicted by more than 2 or 3 malefics, it's a red alert. On the same time, if we have Jupiter afflicted by 2 or more malefics, it's a red alert. On the same time, we also have to check the Lagna of your D9 chart. Now, why I'm saying Lagna? Any divisional charts that you take, the Lagna of that divisional chart is attitude towards marriage. And when we look at the Lagna of D9, if you have certain planets that are not, appreciated, or there are certain Lagnas of the D9 which can give a very childish behavior, or the traits that you're talking about are, first of all, Mercury in the Lagna of D9, or having Gemini ascendant in the D9 Lagna is a very, very peculiar combination where you become so overly peculiar about your life partner. Mercury or Gemini sign, specifically the Gemini sign in the D9, is a very selfish sign. And when you have planets like Mercury in the Lagna, you have a very, very different kind of a choice. You have a perception in your mind, and you are not able to take decisions, because of which there are chances that you are experimenting your physical and mental and psychological compatibility with, different kind of people, different genders as well, not only the partners with the opposite sex. That's one problem. Although if this if this Mercury or the Gemini Lagna is blessed by Sun or Jupiter or Venus, definitely then that scope of being very, very peculiar just goes away. Second, if you have Mars in the Lagna of the D9, or you have Martian ascendant, specifically Scorpio rising, you see, that is where there is disturbance in the married life. There are 2 Lagnas in the Navamsha that is not welcomed by my knowledge. Are the Scorpio Lagna in the Navamsha and the Aquarius rising sign in the Navamsha. Now, I'll tell you why. See, Navamsha is a chart that is basically come out of the energy of the 9th house. Now, that is why it is known as D9. It is the 9th, division. And the 12th from the 9th in a Kalpurush Kundli is Scorpio, which is the loss of the 9th house. And the 11th, house is basically 3rd from the 9th, which is technically, the Mrityu. It is 8th from the 8th in the Kalpurusha, and 3rd house becomes where, things are disturbed and things are completely demolished. So having Aquarius Lagna and then having the Scorpio Lagna, having Gemini Lagna, having planets like Mercury and Mars in the Lagna are technically red alerts. But then they become the bigger red alert if there is Rahu. If there is a Saturn-Rahu combination, that means your attitude towards your marriage is not right. You are too passionate, or you are too experimental, or you have an illusion in your mind about marriage, right? You are not stable, you know, with your thought process in the marriage. So these combinations are to be taken with utmost care. Now you will also find people with Scorpio Lagna and Aquarius Lagna having a great married life, and even their attitude was good. That was because of the natural benefic planets sitting in the Lagna. For an example, Venus in the Lagna, right? It is the blessings of the Mahamrityunjaya Shiva. When I say Mahamrityunjaya Shiva, it means that you can have difficult situations in your married life, but you will be able to come out of those difficult situations. There's another example. Suppose, be it any Lagna in the D9, if you have Venus in the Lagna of D9, it is the significator of premature delivery. Now, what exactly is the meaning of premature delivery? The meaning is that you were born premature, but you survived, right? That is what is Venus all about. Venus in the Lagna, oh, there could be problems, there could be certain issues in your marriage, but 100% you have ability to come out of it. Oh, there is Mercury in the Lagna with some peculiar nature, but then you got Surya there. Surya is going to give you that education, that knowledge, that wisdom, that confidence, those leadership qualities to take your marriage ahead in the right way. But definitely Gemini, Mercury, afflicted Mercury, Mercury Rahu, Saturn Rahu. I've seen Saturn in the Lagna of the D9. People are focusing about their career all the time. They want to work. They want to say, oh, once I get settled, maybe 34, 35, 38, 39, until I don't have enough money, until I don't reach to that status, I'm not getting married. That's the kind of attitude Saturn can give you. And there could be a further illusion if you've got Rahu there. And if there's a Ketu with Saturn, it is going to take you towards the path of spirituality, right? It is going to give you that extreme amount of devotion because of which you are not able to get married. So technically, these are certain combinations, right? I mean, if you have Sun and Moon together in the Lagna, it's going to give you a lot of anxiety, in your life. So these are certain combinations in the Lagna of the D9 that shows the attitude towards the marriage.
Right. I would also here want to, touch upon the fact that one does not want to get into a situation where they're married and, the spouse turns out to be violent or abusive, mentally or physically abusive. And I believe definitely these combinations can be seen in, one's horoscope. So would you be able to elaborate on what
Absolutely.
what planets can one look out for and combinations before suggesting that okay, this partner is right for you or the wrong one?
You see, Muni Parashara has always, distinguished or differentiated planets into natural malefics and natural benefics. And the combinations that I was talking about in the Lagna of D9 were your combinations. And the seventh house of your D9 belongs to your life partner. Now, suppose you've got Mars and Rahu in the seventh house of your D9. It is a blast of aggression and passion and being very, very, uh, it's like it's a high voltage of impulsiveness. It's an ocean of impulsiveness. But if you've got Mars Ketu in the seventh house, you can expect a very, very, uh, extreme life partner. Suppose you've got Rahu in the seventh house. He's going to be intelligent, but he can play mind games. He can be someone who's very, very illusionary, when it comes to dealing with you. I mean, he's always going to keep some dilemma, keep you in dark and not sharing anything with you. Similarly, if you got Saturn Rahu, it's a bad combination. It's not a good combination. With Saturn and Jupiter in the seventh house, this person is going to create certain situations that are bad for both of them, for himself as well as for the other life partner also. So technically, when you have Jupiter Rahu, Mars Ketu, right, Mercury Rahu, Saturn Rahu, Moon and Rahu, or these natural benefic planets, that are hammered by the natural, malefics, that is where, and especially in the seventh house, that is where you're going to have physical, mental, social abuse in your life through your life partner. But these conditions can be checked in totality. Suppose I give you another example. Suppose you've got Saturn Rahu in the seventh house. Saturn is being very dry, being very cold, being very practical about everything. And then comes Rahu. Rahu is like illusion. Rahu is like, you know, it's a tug of war. And, Saturn suddenly wants to stop Rahu from partying and everything. And then this person is very cold with you, but enjoying life with his friends and his social circle, partying, and he's such a good man in the society. But when it comes to you, this person is like, someone who's like an ice cold person and has no emotions for you. But there are chances that if a good Jupiter or a good Venus is looking at that combination over the period of time, especially after the age of 36 or 42, the relationship are going to improve, right? You see, whenever we look at the seventh house, it is an upachaya bhava from the fifth house. What is fifth house? Your love, romance, children, right? And third house from it is the seventh, which is the first upachaya. So at times, if you have benefics there, or if there are benefic relationships with those bad and cruel yogas, over the period of time, right, there is a chance to come out of the situation. But there are 3, 4 situations based on my experience. I would want you people to quit your marriage. You should have that courage to not stay in that marriage. First, you should not give chance to anyone before marriage or after marriage if there is, a deception, and that too deception because of physical and sexual needs. I've seen people madly in love with each other. People make mistakes. So your life partner has made a mistake, and she comes up and says, "Oh, it's, please forgive me for once, and I will not make a mistake again." I think 99% of the time, there could be 1% chance where you have those benefits looking at it, but that mentality will not go away. It is an unforgivable, absolutely clear and strong on it. It's an unforgivable act. And that is where you should take a call. Even before marriage, if you have weird or strange experience, in the courtship period or even after marriage, please do not, talk about the society, the money that has been already spent, the parents. What will be your scope after you've broke this engagement or marriage? These things die their own death with time. You will still be able to get a good partner for yourself. And suppose, your life partner starts abusing you or publicly doesn't take care of your respect. I must tell you that the biggest requirement in any marriage is respect more than love. It is the respect which is the primary requirement of any relationship. So if you feel disrespected, if you feel that your partner is overly secretive and you are not part of his major decisions of life, if you feel weird and if you feel some trauma, looking at the mobile phone of your life partner, if you feel that life partner is trying to hide, the smallest of the smallest things from you, you should never think about society. You should never think about the money. You should never think about the time that you spent with that person. You should not even think about the vintage of your married life. Trust me, if there are worst combinations and if a worst dasha is right ahead, you have strong chances of losing your life. At least, if not life, I'm sure that you have strong chances of losing your mental peace and you are going to decrease your longevity. Stay strong. The dharma of the marriage is in the third house. Third house is also house of prakram when we look at the D1. So dharma of marriage also tells you to have that strong willpower and strong decision making ability that hey, this is not acceptable even if we are married for 20 years. That's the message that I want to give you to all those people, who are suffering, who have dry marriage, people who have, you know emotionless marriages. I mean, the children are your glue, but when the children are going to move away and when the children are going to be busy in their life, you need a companion. And if you don't have a companion, you're breathing heavily and you are decreasing your longevity. So, the seventh house, the afflictions, the position, the affliction of the Lord of the seventh house, right, are big red alerts about the attitude of your spouse.
Very well said. Um, One thing that I want to ask you here is that, there are people out there who see red flags, but who find themselves stuck in a bubble phase where they are still, wanting to go back to somebody who looks like a big red flag. I was recently at a spiritual retreat in Bangalore, and there was this girl who came to me, and she started crying, and she was just crying all the time. And she was, we were asked to interact in a group, and she started revealing how there is a guy who, initially showed a lot of interest and met her in some other city, and then after that he was just not there for her, and he just didn't want the relationship. And this girl is stuck in that bubble, and she's just not, willing to move on. So what is this phase where no matter how many people tell you that this person is wrong for you, this is a red flag, you are stuck in that bubble, and what is happening with your planets, that you are just not able to take that decision and just get off that boat?
You see, this is again a very, very good example and a very good question. The problem is with your moon, you're weak. The problem is with your lagna, you're weak. Saturn transiting in the lagna, it just cuts off your, intelligence and that cosmic blessing that you get every time you are thinking about something and trying to take a decision. But on the same time, I must tell you that in a very generic way, Pritika ji, this is one of the biggest mistake. You see, love cannot be one-sided. Love cannot be begged. Love cannot be achieved by becoming bigger or larger in life. You see, after 20 years in Vedic Jyotish, and I know people may take it wrong, but this is a fact and this is a reality that in Kali Yuga, there is no true love. There is love. I would not deny that, but there is no true love left in Kali Yuga. People are thinking about what are we going to get in our life rather than what we are going to give to someone in this life. And when there is love, it's also about give and take. You find two people talking about love. Oh, I did this for you, I did that for you, what have you done for me, right? So this is where the problem is. And if any such client would come to me, and if they have that situation where they're not able to leave a person, it's also because of their dasha. You see, imagine yourself, you are 24-year-old or 25-year-old, you're madly deeply in love with someone, that person is now no more interested, you are shattered, and these people come to me, they ask me, Navneet sir, what if I don't get married all my life? What if I'm not able to come out of that situation? Right? This was the last person in my life. right? I cannot think about anyone else because he was my everything. And he was, like I thought from my childhood, and I can't live without him. I actually breathe for him or her. Well, it's not about your feelings. It's about your present planetary position, your dasha, and maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, when you've gotten married to someone and that person is fortunately 100 times better, than what you were having, you are going to laugh on yourself. So, under such circumstances, you should trust your parents, you should trust your best friend, you should trust your guru, you should trust your astrologer that you will get someone who is much better for you, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 4 years down the line, and you are going to laugh on yourself. And that is the only remedy. There's nothing else. And you know what? When God has taken something from you, and God, is basically you're at the rock bottom. You are nothing, and no one is with you. God is with you. You should enjoy that moment of your life. You should enjoy the God's company with you at that point of time, and He'll give you the best. That is the advice to such couples. Do not feel shattered. If a person goes away, is not end of the world. One energy, one person will always be with you, and that is God. And you should enjoy the company of the God so that He can give you another good company at the Bhuloka. But this is not end of your life.
Very well said, Navneet ji. There is this major trait of people that a lot of people are not aware of, which I have studied. So it's a narcissistic trait. Okay, these people are called narcissists. Now, the dictionary meaning of a narcissist is somebody who is full of himself or herself, but no, it doesn't end there. These people are people who specialize in giving you a big tick and a big cross, and then a big tick again and a big cross again. So that's what they do with you all the time. So they are playing this mind game with you, and you're falling into that tick trap, if I can put it that way. So, for instance, if you are, a wife and your husband walks in home and he says, "Oh wow, I'm getting this amazing fragrance. Like, are you cooking something nice tonight?" And she says yes. So he's like, "Wow, it smells great." And then she lays the table for him, and then he says that, "Oh wow, this looks really good." And then he eats and says, "Okay, I think the salt, is a little less, and it's a little spicy too. Maybe it could have been better." So again, across. And then he can say, "Okay, wow, I like this, what you made, the soup tastes really nice, but why is this, table laid so shabbily?" So he is giving her a tick across all the time. And this is just an example. It can be, it's not gender specific. It can be the other way around too. But what the other person is not realizing is that they are getting, their mind is getting bloated with happiness, receiving that tick, and then that cross is what they are ignoring. But that cross is doing a subtle damage, psychological damage, where they find themselves slowly with time, trying to please the other person. And then it becomes like a subconscious fear. "Oh my God, if I do this, then this person might say this. If I do this, then the person may say, something else." So either the person will end up becoming a very, somebody who will keep, defying himself and saying that, "No, I will do it this way." So the person will keep getting aggressive and arguing, or the person may just become very submissive and keep pleasing the other person. And this is a very subtle psychological damage that can happen to a lot of people out there. How do you see a narcissist? Because I have explained verbally the traits of a narcissist for people to understand what I'm indicating. But how would you see traits of a narcissist from an individual horoscope?
You see, there is this combination. It's a very, very tricky combination. And this is an exchange of the Lagna Lord and the seventh Lord. That means the Lagna Lord is in the seventh house and the seventh Lord is in the Lagna. And this you need to check in the Lagna as well as in the D9 chart. You see, I don't want to name certain highly strong political people, but you will find them in their charts. And they had a very, very, very critical kind of marriage. And they were judging all the time. So this is a combination which were actually made to not judge someone. And it was a combination that, your better half is you and you are, you know, her better half. I mean, it's like a combination of Ardhanareshwara. But in Kali Yuga, this combination has gone so bad that when you are in the seventh house, you have expectations that your spouse should behave like you, right? I mean, your intelligence, your Lagna has gone to the seventh house. And when the seventh house Lord is in the Lagna, that means that you want everything that your spouse should do should be based on your intelligence and you're always judging him. Because, for an example, seventh house is the marketplace. So when you go to the market, you are saying, oh, this is right, this is not wrong. So seventh house is like your Dubai mall, right? You go to different places, you ask that this is not, this is right, this is wrong, or this is I love, this is suits on me, but no, this is not like that. So judgment comes from the seventh house when the Lagna Lord is in the seventh, and then it's going back to the Lagna. Very, very dangerous yoga for marriage. Second combination, any exalted planet in the Upapada Lagna chart. So if you have an Upapada Lagna chart, if you have an exalted planet in the Lagna, that means you are fully aware of what you're supposed to give to your life partner and what you're supposed to take from him. So you were exactly sure about that dish that, oh, she cooked it for me. And then you were fully aware that, oh, this is not according to my taste. I can say this thing to her right away. That strong, exalted planet in the Upapada Lagna, and everyone watching this video, if you just open, you see the Upapada Lagna, your spouse will have that exalted planet that makes you very, very critic. There are certain nakshatras as well, Mula nakshatra, where you go and you go to the deepest of the deepest investigations. There are certain nakshatras like Dhanishta that has ability to be little self-centered, where you just want to say no to everything, and also you keep your words and your thoughts on the higher priority than your life partner. There are nakshatras like Ardhara. There are nakshatras like Purva Bhadrapada. These are the nakshatras where quickly, with a flash of light, your nature and behavior will change and you will start judging someone. So, in totality, these are just the inputs. There are several other factors, especially if you have egoistic planets like, Surya, aspecting in the Lagna, or you have in the Navamsha where Surya and Rahu, and then you have Aquarius Lagna, which I have explained you. So there are certain Lagnas, and combinations that give you this nature. But you also have to see the longevity of this kind of a criticism, looking at the upcoming dashas. But if you see these traits, no matter what your horoscope says or what the life partner's horoscope says, please do not be submissive. Do not try to please that person with the fear. That is not the dharma of marriage. Dharma of marriage is in the third house, where you have to stand for yourself, where you have to start new things in your life. You should not compromise with this criticism, right? You need to tell them in a very soft way. Otherwise, you need to take a call for yourself. Such people are not required in your life. God will always be with you and he will always come and rescue you. All you have to have is courage and stand for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. So in the case of Twisha, what happened was that her in-laws, are also now under investigation, and of course they are, behind bars right now, because of the fact that they were involved in, taking away her life. So, and of course, I can't make any judgments or statements because the investigations are still on. But how do you see whether, the family that you're going to go into and get married, especially for a girl, because she has to get into the, husband's family and start living there with them, especially if you're an Indian and as per our traditions. How do you judge and see especially the your spouse's parents and their behavior towards you?
Great question again. You see, when you're marrying someone, you're not just marrying one person, it's an association between one family and the other family. So, your mother in law, your father in law, your brother in law, sister in law, the friends of your spouse, they all have a role to play. So, when we want to understand the family, first we look at the 8th house in the Lagan Kundli, which is the life after marriage. So, if there is Saturn or some egoistic planets, so it is going to create an ecosystem of egotism and somewhere being very very practical. But if you have functional benefic or natural benefic planets, it's going to be okay. But that's not the deepest dissection. You go to D9 chart, you are the first house of D9, which is your attitude. Seventh house is your spouse, and seventh house is your spouse's attitude. Now, the third house from the seventh, which is technically the ninth house of your D9, are the younger siblings of your spouse. The eighth house, which is basically the second from the seventh of your D9 chart, is the entire kutumbha, the relatives of your spouse, and his fixed assets, his family, his food habits, his value system when it comes to eating. Then you move further. So from seventh, the fourth house is the 10th house, which is your mother-in-law. Okay, and then you move to the sixth house, which is technically the 12th house of your D9 chart, and this is sixth from the seventh, are the enemies and the struggles of your spouse. And obviously, the Lagna of D9, which is exactly opposite, is you. And then the eighth house is basically, those unwanted, struggles or sudden things that can come. And ninth house from your seventh, which is the third house, right, is basically the guru, the dharma, the spirituality of your spouse. The 10th house is your father-in-law. What is that 10th house from the seventh, which actually is your fourth house from the D9 Lagna. And then the fifth house, which is 11th from the seventh house, is also the elder sibling of your spouse. And 12th house is the kind of isolation, the kind of mindset he has in the most difficult situations. And the 12th house, which is technically the sixth from the seventh, the sixth from your Lagna of your D9, and 12th from the seventh is the Rina. It is the basically the debt of that marriage. So quickly, the second house family from the seventh, which is eighth, and then the ninth, and then the 10th. So that way you consider your spouse Lagna as the seventh house of Navamsha and superimpose, brother, sister, friends, their society, everything accordingly. That's when you see, and if you have afflictions there, suppose you've got 10th house affliction of your D9, which is the fourth of your spouse, which is the mother. So definitely there are problematic situations with the mother-in-law. If there's no planet, take the Lord, right? If you see the 10th house, right, from the seventh, which is technically the fourth house of your D9 chart, and you see afflictions there, the problem is with your father-in-law. And if both are afflicted, it's both the problems, the father-in-law as well as the mother-in-law. And that's how you see siblings, friends, the entire family. And I'm sure I have not seen the chart, but there must be afflictions in such cases, right? Specifically, I would say in the chart of the deceased, the person who is deceased, right, would have afflictions in his fourth and 10th house of his D9 chart, which were technically the father and the mother, of the spouse or the would-be spouse.
So, Navneet, a lot of people out there do not still know that a horoscope can reveal almost everything about, a person, personality, characters, traits, everything. So, as an astrologer, I think that for you, I mean, you must be looking first into character analysis before matchmaking, right? So, for this basic character analysis of the person from the horoscope, what is it that you actually look at? Like, what are the planets and their placements and the houses that you first consider on priority?
I think, Pritika ji, that's a superb question. And there are many sutras and many combinations that we consider, but there are certain very important combinations that I will be discussing with you in next 5 minutes. Now, you see, marriage in a horoscope, the seventh house is something which is very, very important and significant house for marriage. Now, whenever we look at marriage, we have to see certain combinations in the Lagna, which is the D1 chart, and there are many combinations that we see in the Navamsha. Navamsha, when you look at software also, it says spouse, it says your destiny. It is the planet of your immediate past birth. It is the planet that, defines the dignity of your particular planet now. You see, there are two things. Whenever Rishi Munis are talking about marriage, they are saying dharma. Marriage is the vivahik dharma. Dharma, or it's a protocol, or it is a promise that one person does with other to live together and see all the ups and downs of your life. Now, there are two houses of dharmas, in the horoscope. Till now, you would always say that, hey, dharma is only the ninth house. I mean, that is your individual dharma. But there is another house which is ninth from the seventh house, and that is the third house, which is the dharma of your marriage. Now, to understand the ninth house and the third house becomes equally important when we are marrying someone. So the first thing that I look at is the third and the ninth house, your individual dharma and the dharma of marriage. And then we move on to the fifth house of your horoscope. Now, fifth house of your horoscope is basically the gain of the marriage. It is 11th from the 7th. And what exactly is fifth house? Primarily, fifth house are five different important aspects of your life. First, fifth house is about love, romance. Fifth house is about your skill. Fifth house is about your children. Fifth house is about your mantra shastra, your spirituality. And above all, fifth house is also house of your punya karma. Now, when you marry someone, right, definitely it is a punya karma that you're getting married to a right person. But on the same time, the biggest glue, the biggest binding agent of your marriage and biggest gain of your marriage are children. You see, what happens is, suppose the five things that I've talked about of the fifth house, one day, if you lose your skill in your bad dasha, one day, probably in 10 years or 15 years down the line after your marriage, if romance and love fades away from your marriage, maybe your punya karmas are exhausted in the first 30, 40 years of your life, and you have a very struggleful life after that. And suddenly there is a bad dasha where, you are also, going away from mantras and spirituality. There is a very strong chance that children, if you have from your marriage will definitely keep you binded. Children in a marriage is one of the most important aspects. It definitely take you out from the ancestral curse known as Pitri dosha, because you're giving opportunity to your ancestors to come and settle the karma through your children, and you are also your own ancestor, so you're also giving you yourself an opportunity to come and settle down the pending karmas. Now, these are about important houses. We also look at the 12th house. You see, the 12th house is technically, the 6th house from your 7th house. And the 7th house is technically the 8th from the 12th house. So there is a tug of war between the 7th house and the 12th house. 12th house is all about giving. 7th house is all about taking. What is in it for me? And if you have the 7th Lord well placed or the 12th Lord well placed, the condition of the 7th house, the condition of the 12th house is good. It is significantly, it's a very good thing. On the same time, these are about houses. Well, there are many other houses like Sukh Bhavas and so many other your social circle, but these are the primary houses. The seventh, the ninth, the 12th, the third, and the fifth. When we go beyond them, we also look at certain planets. Now, when we talk about planet, the first planet that nobody talks about when we talk about marriage is Ketu. Now, the problem with Ketu is that Ketu doesn't support the concept of marriage, but it supports the idea of having children. Now, you have to understand this concept. A planet is not supporting marriage, but supporting children. So that means Ketu is telling us about dharma, and that is the reason Ketu has its Mula Trikona in the sign of Pisces, which is in the 12th house of your Kal Purush Kundli. Now, you see, suppose you've got planets like there's a combination known as Venus Ketu or Jupiter Ketu in your horoscope. What happens here is Ketu is not supporting marriage. Venus is the Karaka of marriage in the chart of male as well as the female. Jupiter, we look at especially in the chart of the female. However, if we look at male and female, the primary Karaka is Venus. Now, Venus goes with Ketu or Jupiter goes with Ketu in a particular chart, maybe in the 7th house, Lagna, 10th house, in the Navamsha. You know what Ketu wants for a successful marriage? If this person comes to me, I would say that the biggest, promise from the previous birth is to have children in this life. So if you have this Venus Ketu or a Jupiter Ketu combination, you should get children as soon as possible after the marriage. That satisfies Ketu, right? So Ketu is technically a planet that will always try to bless someone in the marriage, but on the same time, there is some extremities that are involved with Ketu. I give you a very small example. You can look at your chart also, or anybody's chart who's looking at this podcast. Wherever you have Ketu, you have extremities there. You are extreme in that particular house, in that particular area of your life. For an example, if you've got Ketu in the 10th house, I've seen people exhausting themselves. They are so extreme in working that one fine day they'll feel that they are blown off. I mean, they're working 18 hours a day, there are no holidays, they need a break. That's what Ketu in the 10th house signifies. So Ketu association with the 7th house, Ketu association, with your 9th house, with your 12th house, with your 3rd house, with your 5th house, Ketu association in the Navamsha, in the Lagna, in the 7th house is a kind of an alert of some extremism. And then, last but not the least, we have various other inputs like Dharakara Graha. We have inputs like Atma Karaka Graha. We need to check. Dharakara is again a Gemini Sutra where the planet with the lowest degree and the most important house or most important chart to look at Dara Karak is your Upapada Lagna chart, right? Upapada is very easy to design. I mean, you just have to look at the Lord of the 12th house in your D1 chart, see where it is placed, and just count equal number of houses from that Lord. You will get into your Upapada Lagna. It should not be the sixth or the same house, seventh, the opposite house. If it is, then you count, 9 places from there, right? So this is where, right, you have to the 10 places from there, not 9. So these are some of the charts where you have to be, you know should have a focus that, hey, I mean, forget about matchmaking, forget about how much is the compatibility. Just look at the individual horoscope, just look at the requirement of that individual horoscope in terms of marriage. And also we can look at the characteristics, the traits of your spouse, and that can be seen from a planet which is present in the seventh house of your Navmanch Kundli, right? If there is no planet, then we consider the Lord of the seventh house. So I can quickly tell you that if you've got Sun in the seventh house, right, of your Navmanch Kundli, which is D9, you're going to have, your spouse as a very confident, strong-headed, egoistic, knowledgeable kind of a personality. He may have or she may have a little large forehead, and she's going to live more than you, right? That is the clear sutras which are given in our shastras. If you've got Moon is a very lustful planet, right? Definitely it is going to give you libido, as well as the libido of your spouse is going to be very high. She's going to be more romantic, she's going to be beautiful, she can be a public figure, and she can be a very, very nourishing kind of a personality, yet can be emotionally unstable. If you've got Mars is like a lawyer, Mars is like a fighter who is always arguing. So I'm talking about the seventh house of Navamsha. Do remember this. So seventh Mars is going to give you, a very, very uh, impulsive, can have temperament issues, can be a fighter. It can be, someone who is behaving like a lawyer in your marriage. With Mercury, it's a very jovial, friendly, uh, and someone who writes and reads a lot of literature. She's a writer, she's a friendly, she's little, kiddish at sometimes, but still a good position to have Mercury in the seventh house. On the same time, if you've got Jupiter, you have a very learned, you have very fortunate and spiritual wife if you have it in the seventh house of Navamsha. But there is a chance of a little fat ego. With Saturn in the seventh house, you're going to have a very mature someone, maybe who is 25-year-old and behaving like 60-year-old. That's what Saturn does in the seventh house of the Navamsha. I mean, she's going to be workaholic. She's going to be little cold in nature. She can be disinterested in several things that you do. That's what Saturn does in the seventh house. And on the same time, if you've got Rahu, I mean, there are chances of someone who already has a heart, break. She's coming in your life. She may be heartbroken. She may be divorced. She may be abstract. She may have very, very abstract thinking. And also, she may be very, very outgoing, and extremely obsessive about modernization and modernism. Ketu give you someone who is a very researched person, good in mathematics, calculations, right? And on the same time, she's also going to be little heartless in certain situations. But the overall property of Ketu in the seventh house of Navamsha is someone who is very, very extremist. So these are the 7 planets that you see the lords, and if they are reflected in some or the other way. For an example, if there is Saturn and Sun together in the seventh house of the Navamsha, so you take the characteristics of both Sun and Saturn to define your spouse, right? Because the first house of your Navamsha is your attitude, is you thinking about your marriage. And seventh house, the condition, the Lord of the seventh house tells you about the characteristics, the traits of your spouse.
So that was really informative. And I think apart from all of this, you must be also looking into Marak Dashas. Do you do that? Do you check whether the person is going to fall majorly ill or have a Marak Dasha coming up?
100% we see all the dashas. You see, when you are matching a horoscope, I would humbly request all the astrologers out there, look at the individual chart of a person. Suppose the individual chart is very good, the compatibility is decent, but next 18 years, you have a terrible dasha coming, or you have a terrible Saturn's dasha for 19 years coming, or a very, very bad Jupiterian dasha coming, you know, I think you should set the right expectations that even the charts are good, even the compatibility is good, but next 5, 10, 15 years are going to be a challenge, at least in these areas of the life. And if you set those expectations, you see, people are in love with each other. But suddenly, the moment they get married, they are in the biggest financial, crunch of their life. And then love and harmony, everything goes away.
Right, right. And I think also partners can bring luck or take away the luck from their, respective partners if their horoscopes are not matching in a certain way. Am I right about that?
You're 100% right about that. I mean, suppose your wife has a Simhasan Yoga, the 10th Lord sitting in the second house, or she's got Sun and Venus together in the second house, or probably in the 10th house. She's going to bring a lot of, financial prosperity and luck, not only in your life, but she's going to bring luck and prosperity when she was born or when he was born. The parents, the family, they progressed. And then she came in your life or he came in your life and you started progressing. Definitely, there are tons and tons of yogas and combinations where after marriage it's a great luck.
Right. And have you also seen somebody marrying a spouse and then their downfall has begun because of the planets of the spouse? Have you seen combinations like that?
Yes, we've seen that. Suppose your dasha is great, and but then you're marrying someone with a turbulent dasha, where there are problems in the job, where there are problems in the health, where there is a problem with the social circle, society, and there is loss of reputation. 100% that is going to bring a lot of negativity in your positive life. And I must tell you, in Kali Yuga, Preetika ji, negativity is way too stronger than the positivity.
I totally agree with you. On that note, I would like to end this podcast. Thank you, Navneet ji, for giving us such beautiful insights into astrology and why it's so important to match horoscopes. I truly, truly believe that the science of astrology has been lost in India, and people have lost faith in the science of astrology majorly because of the 600 years of colonization period that India has suffered and the almost 190 years of British rule that India went through, where none of these foreign rulers and invaders wanted us to believe in our ancestors, our Vedas, and they dismissed everything for us that came from the Vedas, including astrology. So I have trended astrology podcasts in India. If you are an astro enthusiast and if you like the subject, we have very, very, very interesting life lessons through astrology. You can follow me on this channel. You can also follow me on Instagram. Thank you once again, Navneet ji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Preetika ji. Hare Krishna. Har Har Mahadev. Shambhu. Thank you.
Namaste.